Okay, so in this video, we are going to look at adding the disks that QBert can jump on. So like there'll be like one here and one over here, and it will change from board to board. And he'll hop on the disk, and the disk will automatically bring him up, and then he'll hop off. Now, I just want to mention something. I might have referenced it in one of the earlier videos. Because the original QBert was a 2D environment, emulating a 3D environment, it could get away with a few cheats. So what would happen is the disk would be here, it'd move right along the side of the board, get to the top, and he would automatically drop straight onto it. It could do that because it wasn't really a 3D environment. For us, it is a 3D environment, so if the disk is moving like this, it is never above this. So what we're going to do is when it gets to behind it, we'll just have him automatically jump off. So not 100% identical to the original game, but close enough. The only other alternative is that once the disk got high enough, we then have to have it change trajectory above this and then drop down. So no matter how you slice it, it's not going to look exactly the same because, again, it was a 2D environment, and so they could cheat like that. So for our disk, we're just going to go to Game Object, 3D Object. We're going to go to Cylinder. And by default, a cylinder for its X and Z size, it's 1 unity unit. So what you're going to see is it's going to basically be the same size as one of these. See how it centers nice edge to edge to edge? That's not a coincidence. So when you make an object, it's 1 unity unit, and that's at least horizontally. Vertically, it's obviously much bigger. So again, that makes life easy if you keep using that 1 unity unit measurement. So what we're going to do is the disk was technically the same height as the tile when QBert jumped off it. Well, because we're using gravity, that's not going to work out right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that same 1 spot over, 1 spot up. So 1 unity unit over, 1 unity unit up, just like these other steps. So it's like you're just adding a step off to the side here. So again, QBert didn't have to do that because they were faking a 3D environment. So unless we want to bend the way physics works, suddenly we're kind of stuck. Something else I want to mention, these really don't have thickness, okay? These tiles, these planes. This does. So when you put this at, say, the height of -6, it's colliding at -6. If you put this at 6, it's the center. So you have to be very careful with your calculations. You might actually have to set this slightly lower than what you think you would have to. So let's just scale this down, and it needs to be fairly thin. And this is what I was talking about. So let's zoom in. So it's really thin, but the center of this would be at -6. So if we do that, since I don't have the horizontal right, doesn't quite demonstrate the issue. But this one, it's the top. This one is the center. So you have to make these fairly thin to not mess things up. And even that, like I said, you're probably going to adjust this slightly so it's slightly beneath that. Okay, so now we actually want it to be the height of this one, which is actually -5, not 6. So we'll make that -5. And this probably needs to be a full 6x. So it's this one's horizontal, but this one's vertical. As you can see, basically what you've done is you've extended this layer out 1. Now, this, for some reason, comes with a capsule collider. So this is round-ish. So if QBert tries to jump on it, he'll just roll off. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to remove that. So add component, physics, and we'll add box collider. So yes, it's a circle, but he's only actually landing on the dead center. So that's one of the reasons why we've been able to get away with box colliders in this. So we're just going to shrink the size. So 0.8, 0.8. And also, if we didn't shrink the size, you have the chance of it clipping as it's moving up. So, size should be approximately right. Its position should be approximately right. It's got one more thing that we need to do. Now, right now, it can't move. It doesn't have the rigid body. So, add component, physics, rigid body. We don't want to use gravity. We want it to just hover there. Because if we say use gravity, it's going to drop as soon as it instantiates. We are going to freeze the rotation because there is the potential for this to spin around. When QBert lands on it, it could technically spin along the, I guess that would be the kind of the z-axis. Anyways, so we don't want that flipping around, so you can freeze the rotation. So not the position, the rotation, because we don't want this to rotate. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, I mentioned mass differential in the one of the previous videos because I talked about how to handle collisions between QBert and Nerd and Blob, and that we didn't want QBert to be knocked off kilter, and that one of the ways you could do it is by having a drastic difference in mass. So what we're going to do is, in this case, the cylinder, actually let's just rename that disk. The disk is going to have much more mass, so bump that up to like 500. And that's very important because we don't want this slowing down as it's moving up. So if I haven't forgotten anything, we can now have QBert hop on this, and it should stay still. So let's run this just to make sure that what we've done so far is working. Good. And that's another case where you might want to have another audio sound that when he lands on this, it triggers a plane of a sound. As I said, I already demonstrated that in another video, so I think we can forego that demonstration. But we'll see. We'll see what you guys want at the end of the series. Okay, so far so good. The position is good. He lands on it. It doesn't knock it around. Now we need it to move. So this is going to look very familiar because at this point we're really not. The coding that I'm showing you is really just repurposing something that we already did. So I'm going to add velocity to this disk, and the velocity is going to occur based on a collision. So those two things are nothing new. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to click there. So create C#. We'll call this disk con. We'll open that up. Maybe. Now, since we're this far into the series, we'll just delete these. We already discussed that those are documentation only, and they just explain when these occur. So outside of start, outside of update, but within the public class, we want to do on collision enter. And again, because I'm using Visual Studio, all this other stuff gets populated. I don't like the word collision here. I think it's confusing, so we'll change it to other. And now we're just going to, we're not going to check to see what's colliding with it because technically nothing else should collide with it. Like we already set up the blobs, they can't fall off like the sides, they can only fall off the bottom. So technically there shouldn't be anything that can collide with this. If for some reason we do need to check, QBert has a tag, but I'm not going to bother right now because we already looked to see how that did and trying to keep the code simple. So get component, rigid body, velocity, and it's new vector 3, and it's a -2 along the x, +2 along the y, and 0 along the z, if I have remembered this correctly. So we made the script, but we didn't actually attach it to the object yet. So let's click on disk. Let's put the disk on there, and now, based on a collision, it should stop moving vertically. We'll test that first, and if it works, then we'll do something up here to make it stop and then make QBert jump off. There we go. And so when he reaches this point, he'll jump off automatically. So similar to the net, what we can do, we can put a collider up here. Obviously, it'll be much smaller. And then what we can do is when QBert collides with that, he'll automatically jump off the disk, and we'll just have the disk self-destruct. So a couple ways we can do this. We kind of want the disk to stop moving because when he hops, we don't want the disk to trip him up. So let's see how this plays out. So first, we said we needed a collider up there. So let's do game object, create empty, add component, and it'll be physics, and it'll be a box collider. So let's move this. All right, so this one is 0, 0, 0. So we want it to move this way along the z-axis. So we want it to be positive along the z-axis by 1 and up 1. So it would be 0, 1, 1. Let's go back to our new game object, and we'll make that 0, 1, 1. Now, obviously, it's too thick because, again, 0, 1, 1 is the dead center. Right now, QBert would hit it right here and then jump off. And the other thing we need to consider is the fact that QBert's collider is not his entire body, so actually it's the bottom that would hit it. So first we're going to thin out this, and this time I will use the visual because there's no object getting in the way. You can see from above, it's positioned basically right. So about half a block more. Just thinking about, because it's like halfway up for QBert. So let's do like 1, 7, 5. And 1, 7. So now what we do is we want to check when QBert collides with that. So we already have, actually I didn't make it a trigger, sorry. Let's go back for a second. Sorry for jumping around. That needs to be a trigger. So we already have the on trigger enter, and it specifically checks to see if it's net. So we are going to have to give this a designation. So let's go to tag, add tag. We'll just call it top. And then we'll click on it again and choose top. So if other dot tag equals top, then we want QBert to jump. We're also going to have to rotate him too. We want him to jump along the Z axis. So we want him to jump down this way. So we will just double check with the key check. So it was 4 up and -1. So do the same thing. Actually, let's just copy it. What am I doing? I keep saying it's rinse and repeat, so I'll also just copy it to reinforce that fact. So if he collides with top, he'll hop off. Because this is faster than what the disk is moving, I don't think the disk will trip it up. But if it does, like I said, we can have the disk self-destruct. Oh, there we go. I didn't think it worked at first, but it did. Let's run that again. Because it looked like he dropped straight down, but I'm presuming it's just that he hopped off screen. Actually, there's a better way to do this. We can just move the camera back a little bit. So main camera, we'll just move this back. Actually, we just move it up a little bit. So let's move it to, say, 2. There. That should let us see it. I was going to open another window, but this should suffice. Because it should be right about here when he jumps off. Sure enough. Like I said, he just needs to be rotated, and just like that, we added the disc. So another success, if I do say so myself. And we'll just copy the UA angle. We'll run it one more time, and then I think that will be it for this video. Because, well, the only thing is, this is only working for this disk. So we could put this disk, say, here, here, here. But the problem is, we would need to put another collider here, which we could. And then have it jump along the other side. So like right now, this one's called top. Maybe we could rename it to right and put one here called left. So yeah, so almost everything will work. You can just copy the object itself, but we'd have to put in a little bit of code to see which one he's jumping, which one he's colliding with. So sorry, I'm just kind of thinking ahead. Oh yeah, we put in the UA angle. Did I save it? Because I was chit-chatting. Yeah, no asterisk, so it was saved. You might have to tweak it ever so slightly to make sure that he's really centered, because I didn't really hop around to see if it caused the problem, but I think it's pretty clear what we're doing here. So he looks like he's slightly far back, so let's try hopping up. No, I think he's good. And sorry, a brief splice there. So, okay, I think that's it. Like I said, you can duplicate this object, put in the tile up here, and then just adjust the trajectory, the velocity of this, as well as have him jump in this direction rather than this direction, and it would be based on the tag that's being collided with. So if you want to see that, I can add it, but really you're just reworking what we just did. So I think that should about do it for this video. If there's anything else you want to see, let me know. It's funny, I originally said this series was going to be maybe 5 or 6 videos. Here we are on 11, I think. So it definitely went longer than I thought, but I think we really are close to the end now. The only thing we don't have the snake. That pathing will be a little bit more complex. And we don't have the guys who travel along the sides of the blocks. But everything else is pretty much there as far as having sound associated with events, changing the color of the tiles, scoring, loading a new board. So yeah, that should about do it. So I hope this was useful. And again, if there's anything you want to see, let me know, and have a good day.